deadheading everything. Basically, annuals, we grow them for their awesome color all summer long. You know, we want annuals because we want color from spring all the way till that frost. And no perennials provide that. You get the early spring ones that are gone in a couple of weeks. You get the summer ones that last a couple months. And then you get the fall ones that cover, you know, September, October. But for the most part, other than that, there are no plants that bloom from the beginning to the end. So that's why we plant annuals. It's the middle of May. In our region, we consider it safe to plant annuals after Mother's Day, because that's usually around the time of the last frost. So it's still a little chilly for like sweet potato vines and a couple other things, but as long as they're up off the ground at this point, they should be okay. So, all right. So in order to maintain those beautiful blooms, though, we have to do two things, and that is deadhead and fertilize. Okay. So each plant has its own way of deadheading. I'll start with geraniums. Basically, geraniums have these tall stalks of flower buds, and then they bloom in these nice big poops, and then the blooms die, and then you get a stick. What's left is a stick, and sometimes they'll go to seed. Most plants, if they have the chance to go to seed, will stop blooming because they've done their job. Their sole purpose is to make babies. And if they fulfill on that purpose, then they're going to stop putting all the energy into making flowers, because it takes a lot of energy to make flowers, right? But they want to do it, they do it so that they can make seeds. So we have to keep them from making seeds so that they keep putting the energy into flowering. And on top of that, we have to keep fertilizing them so that they always have the energy they need to flower. Now the fertilizer I use is naturally occurring bloom boosting fertilizer, okay? I'll show you that in a bit, but for right now we're going to focus on deadheading. Synthetic, yes. So the thing about synthetic fertilizers is that it's kind of like giving a kid candy, okay? It gives them a sugar high, they bounce off the walls for a couple hours, and then they crash. And not only that, they get addicted to it, right? They have to have that fertilizer in order to keep going. Like out here, yeah, he can stay out here. It's like, it turns your plants into crack addicts, okay? So we don't like using synthetic fertilizers. I want to use stuff like slow release or organic-based stuff, which is why I use good soil, because that's the base of everything, is good soil. If your soil is lacking in nutrients, your plants aren't going to do well. But then, yeah, we amend with a little bit of soil. We amend the soil, and then we add the fertilizer throughout the year, because annuals just need a lot of that nitrogen and phosphorus and potassium. They've got to have that NPK or they can't keep going. So geraniums, the buds come up and there's these nice little cluster of flower buds, and then they have this nice big bloom, and then they start to die off, and you might have a few buds left, and that's fine. You might pull off just the dead blooms, but usually what you do is you take off the whole stalk. As soon as this is pretty much done, you want to remove the stalk. Now, there's a couple ways to do it. There's a right way and there's wrong ways. Okay, so I'm going to show you the wrong ways. You use your pruners to cut it. Please, for the love of God, don't do that. Okay? What happens is it dries on the end and it turns into a sharp, pointy stick that the next person that comes along to deadhead stabs their hand on. And I can tell you from personal experience that hurts. Don't do that. With a geranium, follow it all the way down, and there's actually a bump where the flowering stem meets the main stem. There's a big bulge. That bulge breaks really easily, and so you just follow it all the way down and snap it off. No tools needed. Yeah, you see right here? Yeah. The camera, see right there? Nice big bulge. You just follow it down and snap it off with your fingers. Don't use any tools on geraniums. Okay? If you're just taking off, if you've got a big, gorgeous pile of flowers with a couple dead ones in the middle, just grab the dead ones in the middle with your finger and pop them off. They come right out. Okay? That's now, geraniums.
You wouldn't take this guy off, would you? Because
No. That's all buds. That hasn't even opened yet.
Okay.
Yeah. You want to wait until like 80 to 90% of the flowers have bloomed.
Right.
Okay, but you don't want to leave one that's like this one at a client's place. I would remove this because it's only got a couple buds left. These flowers are almost done, and these flowers are done. If I wait until my next visit for two weeks from now, these have gone to seed, and it's going to be like swimming upstream trying to get this thing to bloom again. Okay? So we take off things like that. So that's deadheading group number 1 right there. It's a technical term that I just made up. Okay, Celosia. Things like Celosia, Snapdragons, Zinnias, these flowers last a long time, and I don't even know really on Celosia if you need to deadhead it.
I've never had to.
I don't think so, but it would be super easy. You just pinch it off. Snapdragons and things like them, they bloom, they have a long stalk of flowers, and they bloom starting on the bottom, and they bloom to the top, which is really annoying, because down here it gets all dead and ugly, and up here it hasn't even opened yet. So with snaps, I deadhead them when they're about, mostly done. Okay, once the bottom starts to look ragged, I might just take off some of the bottom buds that are dead and seeding. But I don't take off the stalk until it's almost done. And then at the end of the year, I let them go to seed because they reseed themselves and come back.
Yeah, they do.
Okay. So, but that's at the end of the year. In July and August,
That was a nice surprise.
don't do that. Yeah, they're nice. Okay, potato vines. I've only seen them bloom once, and it was gorgeous, but there was nothing to do afterwards. Verbenas are another thing you guys are going to be deadheading a lot. Okay, so verbenas have a growth habit similar to salvia, and there's a lot of things that bloom like this. But basically, they bloom, and then they have 2 leaves, they have nodes, and then they bloom there. And then each of these leaves, or each of these stems will likely have leaves that'll bloom there. So it forks. It'll bloom, and then it'll fork below that bloom. So what you do is you take that first bloom off, because this is one that's super important to deadhead. If this goes to seed, it will not bloom again, and you will not be able to get it to bloom again, no matter what. And trust me, I've tried. So you always want to check for the dead blooms, and then take them off, and then it'll bloom again at the next node. And then you'll take those blooms off, and it'll bloom again at the next node, etc., all summer long. The way you tell a fresh cluster of blooms from an old one, the fresh ones are flat. When it blooms, these elongate. Okay, so it'll be like a long panicle of them, and they'll still be green, and it can be really hard to tell the difference. So that's what I'm telling you. The new ones are flat, the old ones are elongated. Any elongated bud clusters that don't have flowers are ready to be cut off. And if they turn brown, it's too late. Don't let them turn brown. Like, there's going to be a couple on each plant, because it's 2 weeks between visits. There's going to be a few, but don't let it get really brown. Okay?
So how do you know when those flowers are mature enough that you deadhead them?
The flowers are gone, and where they were is elongated.
Copy that.
Okay?
Yeah.
Honestly, it looks more like this. The shape of these little buds is more like the Celosia, in that it's long and the buds are all coming out.
Okay.
Okay? And that's about it in here. There's no maintenance with lobelia, no maintenance with potato vines. Calibrachoa, the million bells, there's no maintenance with those. The most you might do is just scruff them up a little bit. Now petunias are a different story. So Calibrachoas, when they get going, they're called million bells because they literally are very profuse bloomers. They're beautiful. They spill over, and it's just flowers from one end to the other. They're gorgeous, but you don't have to do anything to them. But they're in the same family as petunias, and petunias you do have to deadhead. And petunias are sticky, and they stink. So your fingers will smell like sticky skunks when you're done. It's awful. But basically with a petunia, they bloom from the bottom to the top, to the end, similar to Snapdragons. And you just take off, you pinch with your fingers, I'll find a dead one. Whatever. You pinch with your fingers below the flower, just like that. Just use your fingernail, or you can use a tool if you're sick of using your fingernail and having it get all sticky. But you just pinch it off, and it's usually really easy to just pinch off. And petunias are another one that if they go to seed, they're done flowering for the most part. I have been able to get them to start again, but usually once they stop flowering, they're done.
They're not a pretty plant when they see.
When they seed, they're so messy. They're beautiful when they're flowering,
Yeah.
but no, for me, I don't think it's worth it. I like Calibrachoa better. So, okay, Salvia, super easy. It blooms. When it dies, pinch it. Easy peasy.
You pinch the bloom.
Just pinch the bloom off,
Mhm.
right? Go down to a leaf node. It'll be a ways down because these have a long stem. But you just pinch it off right there.
Mhm.
Okay?
Okay. That's all salvia?
This is Salvia, yeah.
Mhm.
There's lots of different varieties of Salvia. This is the one I bought this year. Kobe, buddy. Yeah, he's like, I am coming through here, dog. Bye. Hurt my plants. All right. So I think that's it. Any questions on deadheading?
So, stuff like these, leave them alone.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, if that. Like, there's not normally usually anything to do with it. Yeah, some plants are like that, and you'll start to, as you gain experience, you'll start to see. You'll be able to look at a plant and you'll know what it needs. Like it'll talk to you if you learn how to listen, right? So, you'll be able to just, and this is the same with annuals and perennials and everything. You'll eventually learn what each plant is. You'll recognize the growth style and the growth habit, and you'll know what it needs without asking.